Yes, Virginia, this is a podcast. We're your host, Leslie.
And Jamie. Episode 3, Ding Dong Merrily on High. This episode coming to you on Thursday the 3rd of December 2020. Well, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in and listening to the next episode. Today we're going to be talking about the things that people do at Christmas, both historically and what people do now. More specifically, really, what me and Leslie do in most cases. As we mentioned in previous podcasts, we are recording this sometime before Christmas. It's in fact September, so nice sunny September day for a change, but it has been raining most of the day. We are recording this during lockdown in Manchester, so it's a bit ironic that we're talking about things to do when who knows what we'll be able to do. But of course, one day in the future we will be able to do things, so let's have hope. So without further ado, what did people do in the old days, Leslie?
Okay, so in the 17th century, when the 12 Days of Christmas, that whole period was being celebrated, these are the things that people did for fun. So Christmas celebrations had enjoyed a revival in the second half of the 17th century, as we said in the last episode. So it remained an important time for almsgiving, hospitality, visiting friends. By the 1660s, a Christmas box meant a cash gift paid to tradespeople, and this had developed from medieval Christmas boxes that we also discussed in the last episode. And it was on its way to becoming the Boxing Day that British people know very well today. But it was becoming a bit of a liability for some people. In 1710, Jonathan Swift, the author, wrote that he was being undone by Christmas boxes, and they were getting too expensive for him. And John Fielding, the novelist Henry Fielding's brother, was also a judge, and created the Bow Street Runners.
That's right.
He was also feeling that it was a bit burdensome. He wrote in 1756 that they were burdensome to private families, all of this coming from Neil Armstrong, the author of the book about the book about Christmas traditions rather than the astronaut, as we said the last episode. Another thing that people in past centuries did while celebrating Christmas was playing cards. This was a big thing throughout the 17th and 18th centuries. And packs of cards were in fact replaced every year at Christmas.
Wow.
Other things you could do were mumming, caroling, and playing games. Lots of games that they played. Mumming, also known as guising, is kind of like folk plays, and we'll talk about this more in a later episode. Yeah. So games that were normally played by children could be played by adults at this time, and I guess that's probably one reason people sort of look forward to it, is they could really let loose a bit. So, and this relates to this idea that we have more now and comes from the 19th century of everyone being more childlike at Christmas. So some of the games that people played were Blind Man's Bluff, and a very strange game called Hot Cockles, where a person sort of kneels down and covers their eyes, and people wallop them on the backside, and they have to guess from the wallop who is doing it, which is really strange.
I think we should bring that game back.
Do you? It could be quite open to abuse.
Well, I guess you have to play it with people you trust to whack you on the backside.
Trust, yes, indeed. And then they also played a game called Hunting a Deer in My Lord's Park, which was like Duck, Duck, Goose.
What's Duck, Duck, Goose?
You don't know what Duck, Duck, Goose is? No. Okay. So this is where, this is, again, games that children play. Mm-hmm. So children sit in a circle, and one person walks around, and that person puts their hand on each person sitting down. So you walk and you go around the circle, and you pat their head and you say duck, 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 for however many times you want to say duck. When you say goose, the person has to jump up and chase you. And if they catch you, then they become the person that's walking around. But if they don't catch you, then you still remain the person saying duck, duck, goose.
I wonder if we have that in the UK under
a different name.
A different name, maybe.
Possibly.
If you're listening and you've played this game and you know it by some other name, then please tell us. But I haven't heard of that one before. Okay. Sounds pretty cool. Yeah. I like it.
It sounds more fun than Hot Cockles.
It does sound more fun than Hot Cockles, yeah.
Okay, so some other games. By 1804, when Jane Austen's sister-in-law, Fanny Austen Knight, wrote to her, the games had become Snapdragon, Bullet Pudding, and Bobbing for Apples, and I'll talk about those in reverse order. So Bobbing for Apples, of course, we still have. It's more associated with Halloween. And this often took place in Regency times after the wassailing of the orchards, which we'll talk about a bit more in a future episode, talking about wassailing. But so it's interesting to imagine how, bobbing for apples shifts from more of a midwinter kind of festival to more autumn for Halloween. Bullet pudding is a bit like having a cake, a king's cake that you find the bean or the coin and you're the king or queen for the day, but it was actually a bullet instead.
Oh, wow.
So be careful that you
bullet pudding.
Don't bite down on it too hard. And Snapdragon was, I found out that this is a game that's played both in the 19th century, you come across it in Dickens, and is also in the 18th century as well. Again, sort of a game of Risk in that brandy would be set alight, and there would be raisins sort of snapping, popping in the lit brandy, and the game was to try to pull some out without getting burnt.
Ooh, that sounds fun, but also really dangerous.
Dangerous, yeah, exactly. So not health and safety approved.
Yeah, I want to do it now. But I guess we shouldn't.
We shouldn't. Don't try this at home.
Yeah, don't do this one at home.
Okay, but I'll return to playing cards, which I mentioned. There's a specific card game from the Regency period, and this was played at balls and gatherings in the winter during Twelfth Night. And this game, each lady drew a card from a box held by a footman to the left of the entrance, where she had gone to this gathering or this ball, and each gentleman drew a card from the right. And then each person would have to maintain the persona of that card for the rest of the evening. And it's kind of like a murder mystery evening that we have today, except without the murder. And at Fanny Austin Knight's party in 1804, the characters included Suki Sweetlips, John Thumb, Polly Primrose, Goody Two Shoes, Dorothy Doolittle, Marjorie Mutton Pie, and Johnny Bo Peep. By 1806, these characters were joined by a pilgrim, a witch, a flower girl, a fruit girl, a haymaker, harlequin, a clown, and Cupid. And this got to be very elaborate, these cards, and actually stationers were making them specifically for parties, and for a short time this was a very lucrative business because these games were very much in demand for this particular Twelfth Night kind of ball. And all this information comes from Countess Maria Hubert von Stoffer's Jane Austen's Christmas, the Festive Season in Georgian England, Joanna Waugh's blog, and AustinOnly.com. And a little bit more information on Regency pastimes, things you could do at this time of year. Some people still play cards at Christmas. People play games. And one of the games that you could play in Regency times and you could still play today, in fact, it's quite a long-standing British tradition, is charades. And charades in Regency times, or charades, as some people say, the more correct French pronunciation. So charades in Regency times were actually 3-act plays, so they're a bit more elaborate than they are now. And with each act described a syllable of a word. It could be played in 2 ways. So the first way, it was a bit more relaxed. Everyone sat down. One person would perform this play, and everyone else could guess. The second way involved teams, and each team would create a 1-minute act to describe each syllable and one to describe the whole word. So it got to be quite complicated. Yeah. And the Jane Austen family played a lot of charades and recorded a lot of them. They wrote them down and kept records of them. In fact, they were published in 1895. So it gives us a good account of what people actually played during this time.
Well, it's really interesting what you said about the cards and the kind of murder mysteries. I mean, many moons ago, before I even met you, I used to work in a hotel. And at Christmas, we very often hosted, almost every night, murder mystery style parties. So there were package deals that offices or companies, various people would buy the package, and that would involve actors acting out this play and mingling with the guests. Dinner would obviously be served, and guests would have to try and guess who had done the murder. So
I guess it kind of makes sense, because if you're in a cold northern hemisphere climate at this time of year, you're going to be stuck indoors for long periods of time. So if you don't want to be sitting down watching TV or whatever, and you're with groups of people, it makes sense to have some kind of games that you can play like this.
Definitely. When we, obviously, as you know, one of the regular features of this podcast is recommendations of TV episodes and films, and we did a long list, and I was able to cut some things. One of the things we cut was Hercule Poirot's Christmas, but you talking about murder mysteries has made me think of it, so that's kind of ties in with the whole being locked in one location with other people, and then there's a bit of drama and suspense. So there we go. We actually managed to fit Poirot in after all.
Yeah, hooray!
Completely unscripted, unscheduled,
Unscripted.
but you made me think of that. So it's again, that's in a way why we wanted to allow an element of spontaneity in this. Although obviously not reading off a script, we've got prompts about what we want to talk about. But that reminded me of that, so that was good. So what do we do now? And when I say we, I'm specifically talking about me, Leslie, my family, my friends, the kind of things that we do at Christmas now. So one of the things that we quite like to do is just go around the neighbourhood and see people's lights, see the trees through the windows. Obviously in the winter it gets dark a lot earlier, and it's usually dark by the time people are coming home from work, coming home from school.
And a point is, which some people who don't live in Britain or haven't spent a lot of time in Britain might not appreciate, is that most British people don't tend to put lights outside their houses. They will put them on their Christmas trees, and they'll put their Christmas trees in the front window, which is usually on the ground floor, the first floor in American. Or they might put lights around the windows. They don't tend to put them outside on the trees and on the bushes, or having very elaborate yard garden displays.
Yeah, it's more sedate, and obviously when I say we're going around looking at them, it's not peering into people's windows in that sense. It's a very different kind of experience than the sort of elaborate displays you might associate with American homes. But for me as well, there's a real sense of continuity. I mean, we moved to Manchester, Leslie and I, about 3 years ago, and before that I'd been living in London, lived there all my life. And there are certain houses that you just know that they're going to have a really nice light or tree, and you kind of get the idea of which ones will put theirs up early, and sometimes sort of from the end of November onwards. And it's just nice seeing streets slowly light up. And especially as you get closer and closer to Christmas, going for a walk in the evening and just seeing how many houses have, even just regular lights on, but having nice twinkly lights as well, and Christmas tree in the window. It's one of the things I quite like. Obviously, being the UK, a few times that Leslie and I tried to do this, we obviously end up getting rained on, so that's less fun. So in New Mexico, it's a similar thing for yourself.
So the family tradition that we've always had is on Christmas Eve. As many people would fit in the car, which is maybe about 5 or 6 people, and we drive around all the neighborhoods in Albuquerque, and again be looking at the lights, but due to the differences in just the way how houses are in size and the way that things are decorated, tend to be by car rather than by foot. And we'd sing Christmas carols, and this is my favorite thing to do at Christmas, and remains so. And we might talk about it again.
It's a lot of fun.
You've done it once, right?
Yeah. And we're talking about these American designs. When I visited family in Florida, even somewhere that's quite hot at Christmas, there'll still be people putting up quite elaborate light displays, which will feature things like snowmen and snowflakes and things like that. So it's still quite pervasive, this cold weather iconography of Christmas.
And another thing we do, which is kind of combining the two traditions that we just talked about. In Albuquerque, we have the biopark, which includes the Albuquerque Zoo, but also includes the aquarium and the botanical gardens. And starting in 1997, they created, it's basically a very elaborate light display that people can walk through, and it's situated in the botanical gardens and to a lesser extent just sort of near the aquarium, and it's called the River of Lights. And I feel like for every Christmas that I've spent in Albuquerque since 1997, I feel like I've gone to it. It's gotten very popular, and you've been a couple of times, right? At least once?
I think I've been twice, maybe. Yeah. Definitely at least once. It's very impressive. It's, as the name implies, it's a lot of light sculptures, mainly animals, but also kind of Christmas things like snowmen, Christmas trees, and you're walking around in the area of the botanical gardens. You're also seeing some of the normal natural plants as well. Some of them were in the hothouse, for example, so it's quite nice going inside because it was particularly chilly. I remember the day we went, but yeah, it's quite stunning.
And they usually run it sort of from just after Thanksgiving to just after Christmas. And we haven't tended to go when there's live music, but they do have carolers, they have bands, they have local live music. So that's always been a feature of it as well.
So another thing that we do, particularly on Christmas Day itself, is go for a walk. And I know a lot of people in the UK say that's what they do on Christmas Day. That's the thing you do. You and your family gather together and go for a walk. For us, it's usually after the Christmas meal, which makes sense after a heavy Christmas meal to then go and walk it off. We usually go for a walk in the local park. And we usually have Christmas dinner around 2 o'clock, so we're usually going for a walk around 3:30, which is just before, obviously, the sun starts to set, so it's okay. And then again, Boxing Day, what do? You do some more walking. Christmas, again, very much associated, in my mind, with watching TVs and movies. So it's not unusual to be watching quite a lot more TV than I probably would have otherwise around Christmas. As we mentioned in previous podcasts, me and Leslie are big Doctor Who fans, and so in recent years, at least for the last 10 years, Doctor Who has always had a new episode on Christmas Day. It's only in the last 2 years that it hasn't. So that's become quite associated with Christmas as well. And obviously we still play games, as mentioned before. Charades, but quite different from Regency times, when obviously not acting out every single syllable. But it's games that the whole family can play so that everyone can participate. So it is the kind of things like charades or categories or taboo, games that involve words and wordplay.
And acting out
and chances to guess. I mean, we've never really played Pictionary, but I think Pictionary is quite a standard one for a lot of families. And yeah, a lot of the fun comes from the different abilities of the players, the levels of seriousness that each player gives it. Competitiveness between people in families, I think, is a natural thing as well. But yeah, for me, it's very funny, particularly a game like Categories, where you're assigned a letter and then given various topics and have to come up with things. And it can be quite creative, can be quite funny when you're playing with somebody who doesn't have English necessarily as their first language, but is trying very hard, and the words that they think of might be quite different from what you come up with. It's also quite funny when all of you come up with one particular word, particularly if it in many ways isn't related at all to the subjects. I'm almost starting to laugh remembering some from in my family. My mum and I are big gigglers, and if my mum starts laughing, it sets me off and we can't stop. And then it gets into a loop because the more she laughs, the more I laugh, and the more I laugh, the more she laughs. And usually me and my mum have to then get ejected from the room until we calm down and the game can resume. And I'm laughing now just remembering it now. Another thing that happens at Christmas, and this is, I have to be quite clear, this is something that I have not done and never done because I don't think I'm insane. But there's a tradition in the UK of the Christmas dip in the Serpentine. It's actually a race. The Serpentine, for those who don't know, it's an artificial lake in Hyde Park in London. It was created in 1730 by Queen Caroline. And since 1864, there has been a race every year on Christmas Day. So people dive in and they have to swim 100 yards across from one end of a sort of narrow stretch of the Serpentine to the other. And that's obviously water that is likely to be very, very cold on a day that is likely to be very, very cold. I imagine it's very bracing.
We read it was around 5 degrees Celsius, which is like 41 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty cold.
It's pretty cold.
If you think about it, it's not that far above freezing. So.
No. So good luck to those who do it. You're much braver than I. I love the idea of swimming generally, but not outside on Christmas Day. I've been to the beach on Christmas Day a couple of times, not often, when I've done Christmas in Florida.
We have been swimming on Christmas Day.
And we have been swimming on Christmas Day
which
when we spent
go into in a future episode.
But not in the Serpentine. That's not for me.
Speaking of very cold water, one thing that you can do on and around Christmas is go ice skating. And I'm thinking particularly in the UK, in London, museums and galleries such as the Natural History Museum in South Kensington or Somerset House near the Strand, they set up these seasonal ice skating rinks. And they're very popular. They start sort of from November usually and go into sort of early to mid-January, lots of people do it. I've never done it, but I would like to do it someday. I used to like ice skating when I was much, much younger. Haven't gone for a long time. In fact, they created a very small indoor skating rink in Media City in Salford, near where I work at the University of Salford. They did that last year, but it was very expensive, so I didn't do it last year. Again, it's something that Jamie is less interested in doing than I am.
Yeah, it looks fun, but I also imagine I'm the kind of person who would fall over a lot and hurt myself and just get very frustrated with the idea of not being able to balance on the skates. Yeah, disclaimer, I can't ride a bike, so I feel like if I can't ride a bike, probably can't stand on skates. But who knows? I should give it a try one day, I guess. Ice skating's been around for quite a while. I mentioned in the previous episode one of my favourite things being the Advent calendar from the National Gallery in London. And the winter ones often feature scenes from the 17th century of people ice skating. They're actual, paintings by Dutch people in particular, people skating in villages, like frozen lakes and what have you, using obviously more rudimentary skates than we would have today. What we'll probably do is find some examples and put them on their Facebook group so you can see them. It's been around for a while.
Popular pastime.
And, obviously another thing is catching up with your friends and catching up with family that you perhaps don't see as much as you would like or you should. That's going to be particularly hitting home, I think, this year in 2020, where a lot of us won't be able to see people no matter how much we would like to. Me and my friends from school and university that I'm still friends with, and we managed to keep a Christmas lunch going for many, many years, as many of us as we could, trying different places each year. There were some years where we just would start planning in advance because we knew that we wouldn't all be together at Christmas, so we'd have it as early as November, or we'd try and have it a later one and catch up in early January. I remember one year we actually had it on my birthday, which is the 1st of November, because we'd worked out that was the closest Saturday to Christmas that myself and all my university friends, college friends rather, would be together. So yeah, that's a really fun thing that we like to do, and we'll touch upon it in a later episode, but I'm just going to say Ethiopian Christmas. That's something we do in January, and we'll touch upon that, as I say, in a later episode. It's also Christmas in the workplace. It's quite a British thing of the office Christmas party. In my previous job, so not the one I'm in now, but the previous role, I was one of the people responsible for planning the Christmas party many years running. I often used to start in September, so recording a Christmas podcast in September isn't that unusual to me. The idea of thinking about it this far ahead, A, because I love Christmas anyway, but B, I mean, if you're leaving it till October, November, you're going to find places booked out. So there's my tip for you. When you can start booking Christmas parties again, start looking in September. You will find that restaurants do have their menus out as early as this. And there's also a tradition in the UK, particularly in workplaces, of Secret Santa. Within your teams, you'll agree a spending limit, and then you'll be assigned somebody. You pull a name out of a hat or something like that, and you'll buy a gift for them, and that way it sort of saves getting presents for everyone in your team. And it's usually a very small spending limit, so you end up with so it's more sort of novelty style gifts than anything like that. But it can be quite interesting to see what people come up with. There was one year somebody got me a chopping board. It was in the shape of the Millennium Falcon. And although I'm not a massive Star Wars fan, I do like Star Wars, and it's the kind of thing that I just thought was quite cool. And I to this day don't know who actually bought it for me, so that whoever that Secret Santa was took it with them.
If you're listening, let us know if it was you.
If it was you, yeah. I have always tried to give quite nice, tried to think about who I've been given and try and find something that matches the personality. But if you're not sure, a safe bet is always like a box of chocolates, a box of biscuits, a bottle of wine, socks, that kind of thing. So yeah.
We have, I think it's more of an American tradition, because when I started doing it in the Secret Santa here in the UK, people said they'd never heard of it before, and that's a white elephant gift, which is similar to the Secret Santa process that Jamie just described, but it's more that you're not assigned someone, you just buy a gift within that certain spending limit, and then people sort of, you wrap it, and then people kind of choose the one that looks best to them. It's kind of your turn, you choose which one you want, and sometimes that works out really well, and sometimes people get quite disappointed. So I don't know which is better, the more traditional Secret Santa or the White Elephant.
I think it's I think one of the things in my previous place where I worked, there were sort of maximum 30 of us in the whole office. Not everyone would take part, but that meant that there was a chance that you might get somebody in the hat that you were less familiar with. Now I work for a company that has over 3,000 employees, so you kind of only do it within your team. And my team was 8 people, so that was a lot more manageable.
So our regular feature is talking about a carol. Today's carol is Ding Dong Merrily on High. I won't say too much about what exactly a carol is because we're going to be doing a whole episode on carols, but I will just very quickly say that a carol is not, strictly speaking, associated with Christmas, and it used to mean, at the very basic level, a sort of a secular, lively dance, and that's appropriate for Ding Dong Merrily on High, because the tune for this carol is taken from a 16th century carol, Branle de l'Official, published in the dance book Orchestrographie, I'm guessing on the pronunciation there, by Johann Tabarot. And there's no direct English translation of that title. Douglas Anderson, who runs the phenomenal Hymns and Carols of Christmas website, he translates that to Servant's Brawl. So if you can imagine that tune being associated with a Christmas carol, you're more imaginative than most. But if you've never heard Ding Dong Merrily on High, which I would be surprised if you hadn't, you could look it up after this, and then you'll sort of get what I mean about it being a very sort of rambunctious,
very jaunty,
exactly, lively. It is like something you could dance to in the 16th century, at least.
Something that you could have a big punch up to if you were servants,
that's
by
right.
the sound of it.
Yes. So it was a song for servants to dance to, and you could also imagine gentlemen and gentlewomen of the period dancing to if they were playing the parts of peasants or shepherds, as they were wont to do in a masque or a ballet or something of that sort. Okay, so that is the tune. The lyrics are a different story, and they were written by George Ratcliffe Woodward, who was an English Anglican cleric of the late 19th, early 20th century, and he enjoyed putting words to and harmonizing mainly Renaissance music, like this Branle de l'Official. And in 1924, he published a book called A Cambridge Carol Book, being 52 songs for Christmas, Easter, and other seasons. So again, he's using the word carol in the actual traditional sense. And it includes Ding Dong Merrily on High and the carol Past 3 o'clock, which is also maybe not as famous as Ding Dong Merrily on High, but still reasonably well performed.
Our film recommendation today is The Snowman, which has become very much a part of British Christmases. So it's actually a 1982 animation done for Channel 4, and it's an adaptation of the comic book The Snowman by Raymond Briggs. It was first shown on Boxing Day in 1982, which makes it just over a year younger than me. And it's been repeated on Channel 4 almost every single year, perhaps, in fact, every year, usually on Christmas Eve, and then usually again later during the week. There's the use that you'd never heard of it before you came to the UK.
Well, I had heard it, I had seen it actually. I believe it's broadcast occasionally on PBS, that's Public Broadcasting System stations in the US, but it's not very well known at all. It would be very much a niche thing, whereas in Britain, as I've come to realize, it is very much a part of most people's Christmases.
I mean, a Christmas without the snowman in the UK would probably be unthinkable. The Raymond Briggs, just a side note, I think he's great. I would really recommend checking out not just The Snowman, but any of his books, in particular the non-Christmassy Ethel and Ernest, but it's a great, fantastic book. Read it if you can. So he wasn't overly that impressed with the adaptation, to be honest. His book didn't feature Father Christmas, which the adaptation does. It kind of inserts a whole sequence with him in there. And there's also a whole sequence where the snowman and the boy ride around on a motorbike. That's not in the original book. But Raymond Briggs, he wasn't dissatisfied as such, but he didn't necessarily see a need to link it to Christmas. That wasn't part of the original story. So it's quite ironic that it has taken on its own life and become such a Christmas tradition in the UK. It's quite famous for its song. I won't sing it, probably for copyright reasons. But interesting thing is that most people associate that song with the Welsh singer Aled Jones. He's actually not him singing in The Snowman. He did a cover a couple of years later in 1986. So yeah, every time you hear that song, if it's watching The Snowman itself, it's not Aled Jones.
But we don't know who it is.
No, it was just I think it was London
Symphonia.
Yeah, it didn't actually specify who within
was
that.
The soloist.
Yeah. So yeah, The Snowman is available on 4OD, and it's definitely going to be shown at Christmas, Christmas Eve.
In the UK.
In the UK, I've no doubt.
If you're elsewhere, then good luck. You might be able to find it.
And our TV episode of the week, of the day rather, is Miranda and the episode The Perfect Christmas. I think we asked the question, what is the perfect Christmas? You would give me a different answer. I would give you a different answer. If we ask you at home, and maybe we will ask you at home, what's your perfect Christmas? We're going to end up with loads of different replies, which again goes back to my theory in episode 1, that one of the great things about Christmas is that it's so complex, individualised. And interestingly enough, we're going a bit of a side digression here. We are going to talk about our personal Christmases later, towards the end of the series. But if you ask me to describe my perfect Christmas, it probably would be different from some of the Christmases that I actually have felt were my most favourite Christmases. So that's interesting. But, back to Miranda. So in the episode, the kind of the crux of the episode is that it's these competing ideas between what people want to do at Christmas. So Miranda is desperate to escape from having to spend Christmas with her family. She thinks it's very regimented. Her mother has a Christmas chart to organise everything that's going to happen. So there's sort of no spontaneity. There's a whole scene where she says there's a whole conversation that her and her dad have every single year. It's a running joke that the dad mentions about the black ice, the danger of black ice, if the temperature drops, and that's the kind of thing that gets repeated all the time. So she in the end does escape and gets to spend Christmas with her friends. But again, they all end up actually wanting to do different things. One wants to stay and watch TV, one wants to go on the famous Christmas walk, one wants to have dinner at 1, one wants to have dinner at 3. So it's really that kind of juxtaposition between the crux of what is a perfect Christmas. Is it one that you will spend with family where you know what's going to happen and therefore in many ways it feels planned out? Or is it one that you can spend with friends and be a bit more spontaneous? But then we come across this whole idea that everyone brings with them of what a traditional Christmas is for them. It is going to be different potentially for you. In the end, the episode kind of comes to a point between those two extremes where they do end up spending Christmas, Miranda and her friends, with Miranda's family. This episode is available on iPlayer at the moment. It's definitely going to be available on iPlayer, I would have thought, at Christmas, and it's very likely to be repeated on the BBC at some point this Christmas.
The radio recommendation for this episode is a program called Candy Matson Yukon at 28209, which might sound a bit strange, but that was how you could reach her by phone back in the late 1940s, early 1950s. It was made on NBC, in fact, between 1949 and 1951. It was made by the NBC West Coast affiliate. It was based in and set in San Francisco. Sadly, only 14 of the 92 episodes survive, which is a real shame. I like Candy Matson a lot. She's a hard-boiled, witty private detective who also happens to be female, which is relatively unusual for this period on radio, and it starred Natalie Masters in the title role. It's set in a department store at Christmas, and you're going to hear me talk a lot about department stores and Christmas on radio, which is a theme that carries over into TV as well. But I won't talk about that so much in this recommendation. And the basic plot is that Candy's friend asks her to help find a replacement for Jack Frost, who is apparently their version of Santa Claus and the elves, so asking the children what they want for Christmas, that kind of thing. It's a totally secular story, and when you stop to think of it, it's a little bit disturbing due to characters actually being murdered, but they don't dwell on that. The charm of this series and this particular episode comes from Candy's narration, which is very hard-boiled and wry. That's her character. And also her on-again, off-again relationship with Detective Ray Mallard, which carries through the whole series. She also has a friend named Rembrandt Wilson, and he has a companion named Diogenes Murphy. And it's pretty clear from our perspective now that Rembrandt is gay. They couldn't sort of come out and literally say that in 1949, but I think that the subtext was there. So it's an interesting sort of murder mystery, very much set in this setting of San Francisco, which makes it interesting. And it stars Henry Leff as Detective Ray Mallard and Jack Thomas as Rembrandt Wilson. And it was written and directed by Natalie Masters' husband, Monty Masters. And it's you should be able to find it on either archive.org or YouTube.
Well, thank you for listening. Like we say, we don't know what we're doing at Christmas at this stage. It's far too early to kind of guess. In normal circumstances, we'd know. If we weren't in the middle of coronavirus, then we would both be spending Christmas in Albuquerque this year. We try and alternate 1 year in Albuquerque, 1 year in the UK. But who knows what's going to happen. So we'll update you on what actually we are doing on the 3rd of December when this comes out. And we really look forward to you telling us what you normally do for Christmas. I mean, not on the day itself, but the kind of things you do around Christmas, especially if it's something that we haven't covered in this podcast. And we can maybe talk about it if we ever do a second series. So I guess that just leaves us with our Christmas cracker joke. So, why did the candy canes fetch such a good price at auction?
Why did the candy canes fetch such a good price at auction? I don't know.
Because they're in mint condition.
Okay. Yeah, you stumped me on that one.
So it's 2-1.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about candy canes tomorrow, so there's your little teaser for the next episode.
Short and sweet.
Just like you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Yes, Virginia, This Is a Podcast. The music was provided by Junior 85. The piece was Christmas on an Island, under an attribution, non-commercial, share-alike 3.0 international license from Free Music Archive. Sleigh Bells by Gowler Music was from freesound.org, used under a Creative Commons attribution license. And Vortex, the piece was Merry Christmas, under an attribution, non-commercial license from Free Music Archive. This was a Lesser of Two Weevils production from 2020.